Hi, welcome to another video on the Blue or Broad YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to go through my AFL season predictions. I'm going to run through my predicted ladder. I've gone through every game. I've tipped every single game, all 207 of them. And I will run through my season predictions for how I think the ladder will look at the end of the season. I'll have a look at who I think will win the Brownlow, who's going to win the Premiership, and we'll have a look at this at the end of the year. There's only one thing I feel like I can guarantee with this video, and that is it won't be right. There's always going to be, I feel like you have to have a slider and you have to have a bolter, so I've picked my two, and let's just see how it goes. So we'll start with the ladder. We'll go in reverse order, so from 18th all the way to 1st. In 18th place, I've got the West Coast Eagles. I think they're not going to be so much different to what they were last year. Maybe a little bit better with some good luck with their health. However, I still feel like they will finish at the bottom. North Melbourne, 17th. I think we'll see signs from North Melbourne, particularly early in the season, but I think ultimately still very young, very inexperienced, moving into their next phase of their development and rebuild. So I've got them in 17th. I've got the Tigers in 16th. I think Richmond will be the slider of the year. And the reason is because I look at what they lost in Cochin and Revolt and these types. And it's not necessarily what those guys were doing on the field last year. They weren't at their very best. They weren't at the peak of their powers on field last year. But I just feel like when you lose that much leadership in the change room, when you lose that much leadership at training within the four walls, I think it's going to be significant, and I think they will slide quite some bit. They've still got some quality players there, but you're not replacing Revolt and Cochin. You've got to sort of build the next wave of leaders. So I think Richmond will be the big slider of the year, and I've got them finishing in 16th. 15th, I've got the Hawks. I think they'll be thereabouts. Shocking injuries to some of their key players early in this year, who they'll miss quite a few months. That's probably why I've got them here. Otherwise, I like them for next year to rise. They've just got to stay healthy. I feel like they're at a point in their development where this many injuries to their players is going to hinder their ability to rise. So I've got them in 15th. I've got the Bombers in 14th. I've got them winning 10 games. I don't have much more to say other than I've got the Bombers in 14th. They won't be a bad team, but I think they're still in this bracket. They could finish anywhere from, I feel like, 9th to 14th. So I've put them right at the bottom of that bracket. Next, I've got Fremantle in 13th place, also on 10 wins. I think they will be a very similar team to Essendon. The difference is they've got a pretty strong home ground advantage. They'll beat some good teams. They'll disappoint. They'll lose to some teams that they shouldn't. I feel like that's the type of team that they are and where they're at. But they will still be pretty competitive. GWS, I guess this is a little bit of a slider. I've got them in 12th position. I don't know. Just gut feel that they had a really good run last year. I think their draw's a little harder this year, of course, because they played finals football, so that might work against them. So I've got them sliding out of the 8 and in 12th position. In 11th, I've got the Dogs. I think they're a team that'll be close to winning half of their games, and I've actually got them winning 11 and losing 12. So I've got them there. Gold Coast in 10th spot. I've got them. Funnily enough, for whatever reason, I feel like they're going to have a draw this year. So I've got them winning 11 games, losing 11 games, and the draw's actually coming up against the Giants. I don't know why. I just had a feeling when I saw it in the fixture that it would be a draw. And when the draw came into my mind, it was this game, and so I just went with it. I feel like every year we have at least one draw. So for whatever reason, that's where I think it'll land. I think the Suns will be thereabouts. They'll have the new coach bounce. Got some quality players, but still lacking a little bit of experience. So I've got them finishing 10th. 7th to 9th, it's tough. But I've got St Kilda in 9th, Sydney in 8th, and Geelong in 7th. Initially, before I had done this, I thought for sure I'd have the Saints in the 8. Then I went game by game, and I managed to find them 12 wins, Sydney 12 wins, and Geelong also on 12 wins. So I think the three of them will interchange, but the way it landed is St Kilda in 9th, Sydney in 8th, and Geelong in 7th. Geelong, I feel, are pretty healthy. They just lost Cam Guthrie. I don't think they're a team that can lose too many of their top-end talented players, but I think Jeremy Cameron's still very much at the peak of his powers. Tom Hawkins, a veteran, didn't have much of a preseason last year, so I think their forward line's going to be very dangerous. Stengel was also down last year and injured. They've still got quality in that forward line. The midfield still relatively up and coming, some new blood that'll come through there, and I think that'll determine whether or not they actually do win the 12 games that I'm predicting them to win. But and then also in defense, they've still got some quality players. So I just think they're going to be very good at home. They have a bigger crowd to fill up that stadium in Geelong. I still think that's going to be a big advantage for them. I think they'll play well at the MCG because they've got the star power there. And being healthy this year, I think they'll be a much better team. So Geelong 7th, Sydney 8th. I've got the Crows in 6th spot, winning 13 games. I believe that the way in which their 2023 campaign ended, it reminded me of Carlton 2022, the way our season ended at the last minute of the game. And sometimes you need that weight to carry. And you could argue that Adelaide should have been in the 8 in 2023 and were good enough to play finals. And I think having that extra bit of heartbreak, and it was unfair, that's the truth. That game against the Swans, it was just unfair, depending on how you look at it. It was either unfair or they should have got the job done earlier in the season or even earlier in that game. But I think the Crows will learn from that. They'll be too good in Adelaide and they'll win a few more games away from home, which was probably the big criticism of them in 2023. So I've got Adelaide finishing 6th. I've got the D's finishing 5th, 16 wins. I still look at them as a powerhouse, particularly at the MCG. A lot of experience. The ruck setup is going to be settled because they know Gawn will be there. I think Gawn will be back to his best. You got Petrarca in there still. You got Oliver. I think they've had a lot of heat come on them in the off season. They've had some really sad stories, with Angus Brayshaw, and I think it'll galvanise them. I don't think the D's are done. I'm a believer in Melbourne, and so I think they'll finish 5th. In 4th spot, I've got Port Adelaide, also on 16 wins. The way I see Port, they're going to be very good and very hard to beat in Adelaide, similar to the Crows. They play relatively well everywhere else. I like the profile of their list. Still got plenty in the tank. They might dip a little bit from last year. They did win, 13 in a row. I don't think we'll see 13 in a row from Port, but I do think we'll see roughly 16 wins. So I've got them in 4th spot. 2nd and 3rd is where it gets interesting. This is where I've got Carlton and Collingwood. I've got Collingwood 2nd and I've got Carlton 3rd. I think we will both finish on 17 wins. I think there's a little something in that with the number 17, given that we're both going to be going for Premiership number 17. I'm really bullish on Carlton this year, obviously, but I just think all the elements are there, a bit of experience. I like our draw. I'm clearly biased with our draw, so there's that. The Pies, they're too good at the MCG. They're too good interstate. They've got that Premiership confidence now. I don't think they're a side that is at the end of their journey. I think they're just getting started. I don't think they'll dip until we see the likes of Pendlebury and Sidebottom retire. And that's when I think they'll have a bit of a hole in the locker room, in the change room, that they'll have to figure out. But this year, I still think the Pies are going to be elite. And then the Lions finishing on top, 18 wins, way too good at home. I don't think they'll lose a game at the Gabba again. I think it'll be a very similar season, and that's how I see it. So there's my ladder. Pick that apart as you like. Let me know what yours looks like. I'm going to move into finals now and what it looks like. So I'm not going to go through every game, but the way I've played it, I've found, well, first of all, the notable thing is that Carlton and Collingwood will play in a qualifying final at the MCG, and I will obviously tip Carlton in that one. The way I see it, the preliminary final will be Brisbane up against the Pies at the Gabba, and then Carlton up against the D's at the MCG in the other preliminary final, and then it'll be the Blues and the Lions in the grand final, and I'm tipping the Blues. That's That's just the way I see it. I could also see some finals heartbreak for Carlton, given how the nature of footy works and you need a little bit of heartbreak to rise. But going to back the Blues all the way. This is us. This is our year. Every year is our year. And so that won't change. But yeah, I think that's how it'll play out. Brownlow medal, it's tough. It's tough. I think the one we're not talking about is Patrick Cripps. Sam Walsh, he has all the rage. I think with his back issue, that may flare up throughout the year. We may need to rest him throughout the year. And so if that's the case, I look at the proven vote getter, Patrick Cripps. I look at the fact that he's done a full preseason and he looks very zippy and he looks very healthy, and a healthy Patrick Cripps, particularly a Patrick Cripps kicking goals, which we'll need him to on the Carlton side of things. I am going to tip Cripper to win his second Brownlow. Shock horror. So that's the Brownlow medal. And that's that. That's that. There's your top 8. There is your Brownlow medalist. And there is your Premiership winner. It's a Carlton year. It's what it is. It's all going to come together this year. I hope I'm right, because it means this channel is going to have one of the best experiences ever. And we're going to be able to document it. And that's how I see it. So chat to you in the comments, have a go at your top 8, put them in the comments below, and then at the end of the season, we'll revisit this video and see how right or wrong we were. We'll go from there. See ya.